It's Tuesday, November 5th, and 2024, which means it's election day. And definitely a lot of people are going to the polls. There was already record-breaking turnout in many areas of the United States in terms of early voting, but now it's time for the actual election day. And then hopefully at the evening or early morning, we'll find out who the next president is, whether it is Kamala Harris moving from vice presidency to president, or whether it is Donald Trump making a return to the White House. We should know that hopefully by tomorrow morning, even though some people are speculating that it's too close to call and it might be days before we know, and all along those lines. And others are speculating a total blowout. So all the guesswork, all the polling, and all of that will be put to bed, and we'll figure out what the truth is on after everybody has voted and all the votes have been counted. But like I said, there are some people that are speculating that it could end as early as Wednesday morning for us here in Durham, North Carolina, as we got to wait for the results from California and other places to the far west and all along those lines. And some people are speculating that it could go much longer than that. But we'll all find out very shortly, and we'll see if any of our panelists come in and have thoughts about what they are expecting as well. Heavy rains in Barcelona. We know that one of our founders is in that area, have disrupted rail service as troops search for more flood victims. And the Spain flood relief package could cost 10.6 billion pounds, according to what Pedro Sanchez has said. And like I said, those heavy rains hit Spain, which was still reeling from the deadly flooding that had happened earlier. And Netanyahu aide is charged for leaking secret documents, accused of sabotaging a hostage deal. So, definitely that's something else going on in terms of what's happening in Israel. And North Korea fires a barrage of missiles into the sea before the U.S. election. So, as North Korea test launches missiles, leader sister says country sees urgency in building military might. So, North Korea tests missiles ahead of the U.S. election, says American actions warrant its nuclear weapons buildup. So, that's something else that's going on in the news as well. And Israel strike kills at least 16 people in Gaza as they are keeping up the pressure on the north. And that's something that folks are talking about as well. Some reports say that it is as many as 20 or 30 deaths in that area and all along those lines. But definitely that war is continuing to rage as well. And North Korean troops in Russia are sailed by Ukrainian forces, and official says Ukraine says it has attacked North Korean troops in Kursk. So we're seeing that there are people coming in from other parts of the world that are taking part in that fight as well. And Poland has detained four over a Russian parcel bomb plot targeting U.S. bound flights. So they're saying that Russia is behind a plot to plant bombs on cargo planes, according to Western officials. So U.S. and Europe are investigating devices detonated at Air DHL cargo hubs in UK and Germany. So that's something else we're seeing as well. An Indian prime minister condemns violence after the Canada temple incident. So definitely weapons seen at protests near a Hindu temple in Brampton, according to Peel police. So definitely there are tensions all around the world, and Iran has rejected nuclear weapons, but will defend itself by all means. So definitely that's something else that we're seeing as well. And the EU leaders exult at Moldavian president's re-election as the pro-Russian opposition whines at that election. So definitely we'll see how this all plays out as well. And China to unveil a J-35A stealth fighter jet as Air Force aims to match the U.S. aerial power. So definitely that's something that is going on. We oftentimes don't talk about the military power and what's going on in the area of China, but that is something that was recently reported and all along those lines. And thousands rally again in Georgia to protest the parliamentary election over there. So Georgia's ruling party crushes the country's European dream, according to The Economist. So that's something else that we're seeing as well in news in that area. And Spain's king stood his ground under a mud barrage. So, like I said, there was that incident that took place as well on yesterday. So, protesters hurled mud at Spain's king, queen, and prime minister after the floods. So, that's something else that we're seeing in the news. And like I said, today is election day, so a lot of people are paying attention to what's going on in that space and everything. So hopefully by later on this evening, we'll have an idea as to which way the election is going and what we can expect. And they are saying that some weather could disrupt some things as well and some actions of some people as well. So we'll see how this all plays out. Tropical storm Rafael has formed in the Caribbean and it is expected to become a hurricane before its landfall in Cuba. And some people are wondering whether the U.S. is on the projected path of that particular storm. And a white supremacist they had planned to blow up the Nashville power station with explosives laden drone, according to Justice Department. So a Tennessee man was arrested for what he did in terms of allegedly plotting to attack a Nashville energy facility. So that's something else that is in the news as well. So, like I said, voters are choosing today between Harris and Trump. So that's definitely something going on. And Musk, according to the judges, can continue with his $1 million giveaway. And of course, it's all a viewpoint after the elections, but we'll see what this happens as well. And a Kenyan man has been convicted of plotting a 9/11 style attack on the U.S. So a Somalia terror group operative is convicted of planning a 9/11 style attack on America, and he faces 120 years in jail for plotting that terror attack. And last but not least, before I bring in my fellow panelists, Joe Rogan has given his endorsement, and he has come out endorsing Donald Trump. I think Katy Perry came out endorsing Kamala Harris. So we've had a couple of last minute endorsements, including Joe Rogan, like I said, and also the son of Roberto Clemente, the great pitcher, and everything has also come out with an endorsement of Trump as well. So definitely we're seeing a lot of people that are doing that. So I'm going to bring in Rick Rosner. I'll bring in Sasha Starr, and we'll bring in other folks as well and see what they've got to say about a number of these things that are taking place. As they've got Sasha Starr and we've got Shaquille in the area as well. We'll see if anybody else joins us. So, Rick, you had your hands up. What's up?
Sure. So I'm just busy doing my, final day, like pissy Trump's against. I just tweeted, Trump is a bad guy with a 50-year record of being a bad guy. He's bad for America. Our biggest enemies around the world want him to win. Pretending otherwise is bull frickin' shit.
So that's what you were tweeting and everything along those lines.
I just sent that out as you called on me.
Okay.
Will it do maybe anything? Probably not, but
yeah, that's going to sway people. Yeah,
no, probably not.
That's not like they've been hearing that for the last 8 years.
So, Shaquille, what's your take on this election? I was actually, before getting on the show, was reading an article that was an interesting article. It was talking about the party vibe of many of the Trump rallies and these vibes that have been going on, and that no matter whether he wins or loses, those kind of situations won't happen, because apparently they were saying about his music list and the party vibe. And I know you've talked about the party vibe, whether it's good or bad, of the Kamala campaign and all along those lines. But I guess we're going to be done, at least for a while, with these campaign rallies, and sometimes they can be very raucous affairs, no matter what side of the aisle you sit on and everything. So I guess some people may be glad of that, just like they may be glad or happy to see the ads go away and everything. But what's your take from over there in Australia? And I'd love to hear Sasha's take from Canada as well. But yeah, it was an interesting article, because I knew that had been the complaint in the past, that she was too much of a party kind of campaign. But they were making the argument, this particular article, that Trump had some very good parties as well.
Sorry, Sasha, did you want to go? Is that your
I
hand
wanted
up?
to ask Mark to rephrase his question. Because by the time you start your question and by the time you finish your question, it's very difficult to follow what's actually being asked.
I was asking Shaquille, but I can ask you as well.
Sure.
One of the complaints has been in the past, even on this show, that Kamala Harris' campaigns are too much of a rah-rah cheerleading kind of thing. But then I was saying that I read an article that actually said Trump's has been similar, even though the crowds have been down for him, and I guess up for her is another article that I had read. But I just wanted your take, that both of you watch from afar. So I'll talk to Shaquille first.
Okay.
Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first, Sasha?
Go first.
Okay. So, look, I actually think that she did. She closed quite well. Her speech last night for you guys, or earlier in the day for me. Look, I think Trump actually squandered the last 10 days. I think he could have closed a lot more strongly. He should have been hammering immigration. He should have been hammering the economy a lot more. A few unforced errors. I think the comedian making the comment in Puerto Rico. Look, that did lead to the garbage comment from Biden and the sort of stunt that he pulled with going and getting a dump truck and all that sort of stuff. So, I think he's done well. I just think that probably in the closing she's done a little bit better. Having said that, when they first had their debate, I said that Trump, in order for Trump to win the debate, what he really has to do is he has to tether her to Biden's record. And if he can do that successfully, he'll win. And I think that that's why he's got the momentum on his side at the moment. The betting markets, again, have surged back into his favour, and the betting markets are really a more reactive extension of the polls. So, I think she closed a bit better, but there has been, in my opinion, a lack of substance to her campaign. And all of this sort of, brat summer and, we're vibing, what does that mean? I mean, I just don't see that as working. You don't have an election of 12-year-olds. And I think that she just needed to do a lot more than what she had. And, she still hasn't had a press conference. I don't think the American people are going to reward that. And I'll maintain what I said before. I think it would be dishonest for anybody to say that the numbers would indicate that she's going to win all 7 of the states, or that he's going to win all 7 of the swing states. I've been talking about Virginia for the last several months. I've been talking about potentially a Colorado or New Mexico or a Delaware or New Hampshire. The truth of the matter is the numbers don't really support that prediction. I'm going to stand by that prediction anyway, because I think that whatever does happen in this election, I don't think it's going to be close. I think that Donald Trump will either have a very substantial win of over 300, 320, 330, pushing up to 350, or she's going to have a win like that, and we're going to see some surprises. And based on that, I think we'll actually find out the result. More likely than not, we'll know what the result is going to be tonight, midnight or something like that. We should know. I don't think it's going to be a matter of having to wait for the recounts in Pennsylvania, as a lot of people are predicting.
What's your take on that, Sasha?
I'd say that Kamala Harris, at the beginning of her campaign, she was, in my opinion, rather shy, because it was quite unusual situation for her, because she is not never been a public speaker. She was a prosecutor, so she would have to read what's been already prepared prior to her verdict. And now she was in a completely new role, where she had to be projected as the leader of the nation. And at the beginning, she did absolutely right thing to avoid any interview, public appearances as little as possible, following the script. She did a lot of smiling at the beginning, so at least that could bring people to her. At least, okay, she's a nice woman, she's smiling, so let's hear what she has to say. Slowly, she developed herself into an awesome and fearsome public speaker, and she is now not shy of any interviews or so on. She's very focused. She's staying on point. She's not deviating left or right or up or down. She is right there, very focused, very concentrated, and it works. It brings result. If you look at her appearances in the last few days, even take it, bringing all the celebrities. Can you ask for more by bringing Oprah Winfrey or Ricky Martin or Lady Gaga? You can't ask for more. That's more than enough. And she has a Pence and many others. So she has it all. Now, look at the Trump. He can't stay focused. He is not delivering the message, what he has to deliver. Shaquille, absolutely right. He had awesome advantage on things like border, like at one time even economy, as it's no longer applicable, but okay, he had that. Maybe what else you could have? Immigration, yeah, border,
Foreign
and
policy.
foreign policy. Okay, it's a kind of it's a questionable situation, but in my opinion, yes, he could boast his record on foreign policies. It's questionable record because all what he's saying is that he was avoiding while he was a president. He was avoiding any wars. There was no war with Ukraine. Well, remember that in Ukraine, Zelensky became president only in 2019. So most of the time it was Poroshenko. He was kind of a guy who was entrenched in certain politics, and Putin tolerated him because he believes that with Poroshenko he would end up with some kind of a deal sooner or later. So that's why he wouldn't attack Ukraine, not because of Trump. Now, but we're still talking about Trump 7, 8 years ago. Today, Trump is a spent force. Nobody is scared of him anymore. And neither China or Russia or even Western Europe or Asia. Nobody is scared. They understand that he is transactional president. He will take any deal, ask, what's in it for me? And only then, if there is something for him, he's going to do it. If there is nothing for him, he's not going to even bother doing anything. Okay, he'll phone Putin. Putin, I want you to get out of Ukraine. Putin will tell him, Mr. Trump, just go away and never phone me again. And then what Trump is going to do? He wants to build his real estate empire. He wants to build up his stock venture, artificial AI or whatever he's doing, coins, bitcoins. I even don't know. This company has almost no revenue. Their stock is trading at incredible multiples. So, but listen, we can talk about it tomorrow on
Yeah, we can talk about that tomorrow.
Steve is here.
Sorry?
Oh, I was just going to say, pointing out, like when Steve pops up, he's usually got like 1 minute.
Oh, okay, Steve, go ahead. Okay, I'm done.
Steve, what's your take on the election? Did you go hang out with Joe Biden?
Hey, guys. How are you? Well, I'll be a little over in a minute. I'm just trying to get my city newsletter out. I've been up since 4. I'm going to be spending some time with Josh Stein this evening, and I'll spend a few minutes. But after the election, I'll be coming back for a more frequent time. I'm so sorry, guys. It's been a really busy year for me. What I'm hearing right now from reliable sources is that it's most likely looking that Trump will win North Carolina and Georgia. Pennsylvania is very tight. So I think that if she wins Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, then this could be won by Harris. So I think we'll know more. My prediction is if Pennsylvania goes to Trump and then, he wins North Carolina and Georgia, then it's over. He'll be the 47th president. But don't count Harris out yet. We also don't know how accurate the polls are. So, I mean, I don't know what you guys are feeling. It's very nerve-wracking to be going through this. Deep down in my gut, I do believe that we're going to see something historic tonight. I just feel that we're going to see Kamala Harris win. And I don't know why that is. It's just deep down in my gut. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe it's wishful thinking. But, yeah, and I had a great show with David Walker on American Politics. But real quickly, let's do a straw poll right now with the team. We've got 5 of us here. Who thinks Harris will win? Raise your hand and tell us what the electoral.
Everybody except for me is going to think that Harris is going to win.
I think the polls are a mess, and I'm giving Harris a 70% plus chance of winning. She'll win the popular vote between 3% and 5%, probably more likely towards the low side. And if she wins by only 3%, that only gives her a 50% chance of winning the electoral. If she wins by 4%, she's, that's close to Biden numbers.
Yeah, well, this may shock Shaquille and everything because I'm not predicting a Trump victory, and that won't shock him, but I am only cautiously optimistic about a Harris victory because as one that has got, and I know you do as well, Steve, but has got friends in the political activism field and a number of other fields, I can tell you that a lot of people are very much on the edge and are nervous about a potential Trump victory. So I think it's going to be close. And as Shaquille knows, because he watches that show, which I appreciate him watching, since we sometimes try to watch each other's shows, and all along those lines, there was a analyst that I had on yesterday that had written a book and everything, and he's actually saying that he would not be surprised, William Cooper, if the election wasn't decided until well close to
until my birthday, in the middle of December. Look, I'm gonna say to you.
Go ahead, Shaquille.
That's okay. You've got limited time, so if you wanted to, I'll answer.
No, I was just really quickly with Sasha. Then I want to hear Shaquille's analysis. Thank you.
Okay, get Sasha first, and then Jacoby.
No, Shaquille, you go ahead and finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't mind. It's okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sasha, go for it.
What are we talking about?
Who's going to win?
What are your thoughts?
Why do you think they're going to win?
Well, I think that this is election not for a candidate, but against the candidate. Those people who will vote for Trump, they will vote for Trump because they hate Kamala and all Democratic movement, and that's why because not that Trump is a wonderful person. And look at him and his appearances. He has wife, he has daughter, and he has sons. He has a family. Where are these people? They are in hiding. They don't want to even appear on the same stage with a criminal and con man. That's why they are in hiding. So he's going there like this. He's not even coherent in what he's trying to say. It's very unclear what he's saying. And this is a horror to me that 50% or about. So Americans are willing to vote for this. Oh my God! Okay, you choose the word. I have many words that I can use here. You choose one.
It's Shaquille. It's your turn. And
go to Jacoby first. You're going to Jacoby first because I'm the only one who's going to defend Trump. So go to Jacoby and then I'll come in at the end.
Jacoby, your thoughts on who's going to win?
Oh, I mean, he had asked for you and Sasha. I'll wait till afterwards. So take it away, Shaq.
But every time I acquiesce my time to you, don't you, Jacoby? You can't help yourself. So, Steve, look, I personally believe that Trump's going to win for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I think that there would be some underlying resentment about having a closed convention or not having an open convention at the DNC. I think people don't trust her, especially after being told for all these years that there was nothing wrong with Joe Biden and then him having that sort of debate performance. I also don't think it's logical that she could go from being such an unpopular VP that high-ranking Democrats such as Nancy Pelosi and Raskin wouldn't even endorse her necessarily to be the VP on Biden's ticket again. And then all of a sudden she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't buy it. Democrats didn't vote for her themselves in 2020. She was the first person to drop out. When Democrats don't throw support behind a candidate and then try to ramp up support later, I don't think that works very well. I'm predicting that this is going to be a blowout, and I think it'll be a massive win for Donald Trump, well into the 300s. If I'm wrong, I don't think it's going to be close. If I'm wrong, it's going to be a complete repudiation of Donald Trump and his policies and his apparent arrogance or his bluster. And I think that what you'll see is a complete blowout in her favor. One of the things where the polls, I don't believe the polls are correct. I think the polls are trying to play it safe by not getting out of line with each other and keeping it at a 50-50 kind of, prediction. I think the wild card in her favor would be is that Donald Trump's been around for 10 years. And no matter how good or popular a president is or a politician is, it it gets a bit old after 10 years. So I think that there's a real potential that the polls have actually underestimated Harris's support or have underestimated the amount of angst that people have towards Donald Trump. And as a result, they could actually come out and vote for her in much bigger numbers. However, I've got friends in many states across the United States. I've got a friend of mine who's a truck driver who drives across the states. I don't feel like the momentum is on her side. So I do think it's going to be him. But if it's not, those will be the reasons why.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I mean, I think, look, I'm preparing myself because I'm working while I'm talking because I just got multiple things. But I think that if she loses, I think it's that, number one, she didn't have enough time in 4 months to mount a campaign against someone that's been running for almost 3 years. I think the messaging could have been off depending on the economy, whether people are going to be voting on higher prices and the fact that they're not seeing the results of an economy. I think the border issue could also be one for those undecided voters that pushes them to just give Trump one more chance. It is disappointing, though, for me. One of the things I don't like about Trump is that I've never really talked about was that I feel like, January 6th, everyone talks about that. But what was scary to me is what happened after January 6th. The fact that all the court cases were denied, but still there were 199 representatives of the United States Congress that voted to overturn the election. And I often wonder what had happened if Vice President Pence didn't certify the results. Would there have been a constitutional crisis, or would Trump become the president even though he lost an election? So regardless of whether it's Donald Trump, that scares me moving forward, that I really wish that we didn't have these contesting the election and that whoever wins, even if Trump wins, then just accept it. If Harris wins, just accept it. But they're already saying there's going to be legal suits and everything. So I had to get that off.
Can I just put something in? Can I just put something into that though? Look, I'm not gonna beat you up over 2016. I think Democrats did. They challenged things. They talked about overturning the election. I do think that questioning the certification of the election is valid. How America deals with that is a very interesting thing, and I think the Supreme Court should have stepped in, or they should have actually had a review, as Ted Cruz was talking about. But I just want to actually inquire about this because I honestly don't know, and obviously you're a lawyer, and hopefully you will know. If Harris does win the election, is she certifying her own electoral result because she's the VP? Is that, or does somebody else have to step in, or is she going to self-certify the electoral result?
I don't know. You can look back at 1988, which was the last time a sitting VP won the presidency. Did George
H.W. Bush, did he certify his own election? Does anybody know? I'm going to have to speak to my constitutional lawyer friends over the US and find out, because that'll be a very interesting thing to see. And I can imagine that if she wins, the Republicans that will say, "Oh, it was stolen," or whatever they're going to come up with. Especially if it's a close election and Pennsylvania doesn't get counted for a few days and they don't work it out, as your guest said, Mark, until December. I can just see Republicans going, "Oh well, look at who's going to certify the election." That could be a Tinder point.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the first state we'll know is Georgia. Polls there close in 9.5 hours. And because there was so much controversy around Georgia in 2020, they've really streamlined their processes. And 70% of people in Georgia have already voted. And they've got all the early ballots lined up, ready to be counted. So I think we'll see a lot of early returns, and that'll give us a good idea. Florida's late because Florida lies across 2 time zones, so their polls close an hour after Georgia's.
What also had the potential to hurt Trump is because he does tend to get a lot of on the day voting, is if the weather was not very good in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. But that seems to be okay. Tucker Carlson's nutty comment that hurricanes are hitting the United States because of abortion. What a ridiculous thing to say. As I said, I think his campaign has made a few mistakes. We do, however, I've had a report that we do, however, already have some early results. There is one very, very small county, the smallest electoral or constitution in the United States, up in New Hampshire. there's only 6 people registered to vote there, and all 6 of them voted for Biden in 2020. I think, if memory serves me correctly, all 6 of them voted for Trump in 2016. And this time around, we've already got the results, and 3 have voted for Harris and 3 have voted for Trump. So maybe that's an indication of what the rest of the country is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I just really, I mean, I think the other thing to think about is, in some ways, I go back and forth, right? I mean, I think that because there's such a feeling that Trump is going to win. I mean, let's be honest. That could it be like 2016, where it's just the opposite of what we all feel, right? And I think Shaquille Latimer is completely correct. I think that I love that analysis, Shaquille. I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking that it's either going to be a blowout either way. That we're going to wait.
Yeah,
we're going to see. Yeah, the polls either misread Trump, and that people are not going to give him another chance, and they're just going with Harris, or that she's not enough, and that there's a gender gap, that people aren't willing to support a woman, and she's losing that, and that, so I think you're right.
I don't think it's going to be about that. I don't think it's going to be about that. And I base that not just on my thoughts and feelings having spent time in the United States, but also what I see in other countries. People don't balk at voting for a woman. I don't think it's her gender. I think it's her policies. Look, one of the things that she's been criticised by from the right is that she is following a script. She's reading from a teleprompter. She's not saying anything sort of genuinely from her heart. However, one of the things that you can criticise Donald Trump for is that sometimes they have to pause his teleprompter because he's gone off on some tangent, and they've got to wait for him to come back to what his speech was supposed to be. So he hasn't been particularly disciplined. Now, people can say, well, that makes him sound like he's more genuine. Other people say it's not. I think that they really should have humanised him a lot more in the last 10 days. People might also be frustrated about media bias. But that's why I said either the polls, in my opinion, the polls are going to underestimate Donald Trump's support, and they wouldn't have been able to correct the issues from the past, or maybe they have tried to correct it and they've overcorrected it. And the fact that she's running a campaign that says that, if you're a woman, nobody knows how you vote. If you're a man, nobody knows how you voted in the voting box, in the voting booth. That would indicate that there could be a shy Kamala Harris voter. And that could indicate, especially with a lot of the bluster that's going on, Republicans and Donald Trump supporters becoming a lot more visible, a lot more prepared to say that they were actually Trump supporters, wearing their hats, waving their flags. It could mean that there could actually be, the solid majority that voted for Trump in 2016, there could be an undercurrent of a very silent, quiet group of people that are just going to go in and vote for Harris. So, look, anyone's game. I do think that Trump's going to win it. Just closer to home for you, look, I would like to see Mark Robinson win because I obviously have met the man a few times, but I don't think there's any chance. But I think that you'll be celebrating with a glass of champagne with Josh Stein tonight. I'm pretty sure he'll be the governor.
Just really quickly along those same lines and everything, I did find that out because one of the times, I think Dick Cheney was actually the one that was part of the transition team. So I'm not sure about Bush, but if we go back in history to 2001, apparently on January 6, 2001, more than a dozen Democratic members of Congress begged Vice President Al Gore not to certify his own defeat, and they lodged more than 20 objections, and Gore dismissed each one of the objectors were all members of the House of Representatives, and he needed at least one senator to agree to their objection. So it seems like...
Well, if that's the case, then Harris will certainly certify her own or certify Trump's. There's no question. I think she'll handle a lot better. But give credit where credit's due. When Biden certified Trump's victory, he shut down Democrats that were carrying on like pork chops about it. So, yeah, I think he did a good job.
So when Stein wins, does that mean we'll have 2 Jewish governors, probably the most Jewish?
Three Jewish governors. There's also, I spoke to Stein yesterday. The other Jewish governor is Josh Green from Ohio.
We can't hear you. We lost the sound there for a moment.
So as a Jew myself, I kind of like that. That we have such representation and people aren't afraid to vote, because given that on the other hand, we've got the most anti-Semitic hate crimes going on in the U.S. in history.
By your side.
All right, fine. Well, I mean, on both sides probably, but like, I mean,
No, they're on your side.
no,
There's
come on.
these college kids that are running around. They're on your side that all this anti-Semitism is coming out.
All right, let's say the horseshoe of lunatics on each end are doing this crap, but it's nice to see Jews in office, that regular people who aren't at the far reaches of lunacy are okay with voting for Jews. I like it. We had a problem with Catholics where JFK in 1960 had to make a speech or issue a statement saying he was our first Catholic president. He had to say that he was an American first and a Catholic second, and he wasn't secretly working for the Pope. So, we've come a long way.
Yep. Jacoby, you want to say something?
Yeah, so just a quick couple of things, because I think we're kind of glossed over a few things in terms of our analysis of how this could break down. Also, just a quick correction. Please do not say just your side on the anti-Semitism when you have RFK at the top, who's being talked about being put in front of health. He's been putting out some anti-Semitic things. You have Donald Trump, who's actually put out and said some very anti-Semitic things. You also had him have dinner and everything with one of the most well-known anti-Semites. You have a bunch of people in MAGA who put out some very anti-Semitic things. So don't just say it's just one side. Don't do that.
Also,
I didn't say that. That's what I want to say.
Being pissed at Israel isn't necessarily. I mean, there's a big mix, but hating Israel's policies and the way they're prosecuting the war doesn't necessarily make you anti-Semitic.
Just to point out, in terms of our analysis, I think we're overlooking the gender gap itself, because we tend to we tend to point out the gender gap where Kamala Harris has trouble with young men or with men. Well, the most reliable voting bloc is women. Donald Trump has a huge problem with women, from his actions, from his saying, especially the way he closed his campaign. And so I think we're overlooking the situation where Kamala Harris has a good, positive push with a very reliable voting bloc. Donald Trump has a good, solid push with an unreliable voting bloc in young men, and we don't know how that's going to pair out. And right now it looks like more women have voted than men, which is normal, and that bodes well for Kamala Harris. Also, we do not know, because of looking at the way that people tend to vote. Republicans tend to vote on actually election day. That is where the mass majority of Republicans voted, especially since Donald Trump came on the scene and he demonized early voting repeatedly. And so we don't know how much that early vote block of Republicans has cannibalized the election day vote of Republicans. We do know that normally Democrats vote early, and they voted early. I don't think that cannibalized that much off of the election day mark, because again, they regularly voted early. So we got to figure out. I think it's going to be interesting to watch how the days or today pairs out, because even pointing out that 50-50 split on that 3-3 mark that we just got, if that holds out, and thinking about the way the election goes, if more women, because more women vote, I think that kind of bodes well for Kamala Harris over the
voting less well.
I think that would be in Pennsylvania. And so that's what we want to know. That's where this thing is. I mean, this has got me on edge now. This is the first presidential election where I truly don't know. This is so.
And I think
I think the problem with this election is that you can find reasons why
their closing message happened, and the get out the vote, and the way whoever has the best ground game today is going to be the winner. Whoever gets out the vote the most will win. And so in Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris had a huge rally across the nation, basically from Vegas, Detroit, Philadelphia, had tons of people coming out in all those places So if her ground game continues to push those numbers, then she has a good chance of winning. If Donald Trump has a better ground game, he'll win. But I think right now, because of the money and the ground game that she's put in, she has a good shot. That's why I agree with you, Steve. I wouldn't count her out.
Let me just quickly answer our audience member. Let me just quickly answer our audience member, Charles Langdon. In the case that it was a 269 electoral college tie, what would happen is it would actually go to the House in order to determine the winner of the election. And presumably, because the Republicans currently hold the House, 220 to 212, someone correct me if I've got that number wrong, presumably they would elect Donald Trump to be the president. And I think that the American people would be absolutely, furious if that was the case. So hopefully you won't get a 269.
You're right about what happens. You're wrong about the numbers, because it's not each member doesn't vote individually. Each state gets one vote.
Yeah. Sorry, I stand corrected. I'm sorry. Yeah, and it's and you've got 26 states, is it? 26 states currently that are Republican and 24 Democrat. Yeah, sorry, I do stand corrected on that.
What happens is the same. Trump wins in that case.
Yeah.
So voting less well for Harris is 14 hours ago, Joe Rogan endorsed Trump. And I was like, but I just looked at that tweet, and in 14 hours, more than 26 million people have viewed it. 450,000 people have liked it. So even if like one, knucklehead in 1,000 who wouldn't have voted votes because he saw this tweet, that's 250,000 votes.
Yeah, but the counter to that.
So let me just address a couple of points that were brought up there, if I can. So Jacoby's talked about the women vote. I think when you break those numbers down, if abortion is going to be the main issue, that could be problematic, because we're seeing a drop in that being the most important issue. Excuse me. We've seen a drop in that being the most important issue for women. The women that are that have the highest percentage of people that say it's the most important issue are the women that are under 30. We've also seen more enthusiasm from Republican women. We're also seeing an increase in Republican registrations across many of those very important states, as well as the whole nation. So that could indicate the momentum's on Trump's side. I think the problem with this election is that you can break any data down and you can use it to make it look like the Republicans are winning. You can use it to make it look like the Democrats are winning. And it's very hard, I think, to really know what the decisive factors are going to be in this election. But one thing that I will say that is quite important is one of the polls that actually CNN has talked about this one, which is what percentage of the people think the country is going in the wrong direction. At the moment, the polls are showing that 28% of people think the country is heading in the right direction, 72% think it's going in the wrong direction. As far as I'm aware, and I think this was the CNN analysis, no incumbent government has actually won when the poll numbers have been at that level on whether the direction of the country is going that way. So that's probably.
I had a quick question for Shaquille. Just really quick.
Well, let's Dave wrap up if he's got to go.
Yeah.
No, I just was curious. I took a little bit more time because I was working while I was doing this, writing some stuff. Where do we? My last thing, just a question is, where do we think about the Senate and the House? I got asked that yesterday on radio, and I really wasn't sure.
The House is really the only thing that's in play. I think the Senate, based on what's actually up for grabs. I think the Republicans will have the Senate. The question is how much they'll have it by. I don't think there's any real possibility of the Democrats getting control of the Senate, but there is a real possibility of them getting the House.
And that's
also on the Senate, the Dems, there are like 34 seats.
Oh, guys, I've got to run. I'll see you tomorrow, post-election day. Be safe, guys. Be safe out there, okay?
All right. We'll see you later and everything.
I got butterflies.
God bless you, because I'm not going to see you until after the election. I'm not going to see you till after the election. So whatever happens, I hope the whole country doesn't just explode in anger over one candidate or the other. So God bless and be safe, and hopefully you'll be enjoying your champagne, Justine.
So out of the 34 Senate seats, Dems have held 22 of them, so they have to win those. All of
Yeah.
them. Which
Well, they're
is a
not going
lot.
to win all of them because Joe Manchin's seat is Joe Manchin's Senate position in West Virginia is up, and the Republican, I forget his name, he's well ahead. I don't think
So
there's any
this, they
question.
have to
that
do
he'll
like
top it.
an upset, like Colin Allred in Texas has to beat Ted Cruz, for instance.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
no
you-
chance. There's more chance
so
of me
the Senate-
becoming the senator of Texas than there is of Colin
Well,
Allred
that's why
becoming.
I'm just saying that I'm agreeing with you that it'll be tough for the Dems to hold the Senate.
It's like I think Republicans would love to see Adam Schiff not be a senator, but it's not going to happen. California is going to vote for Adam Schiff to be a senator. He'll be
just
6 years.
Hold on a second. I've got two
on
quick
the-
questions for Shaquille and everything. One of them is because you mentioned it and you mentioned it before and everything. I know you're not a big fan because you've said it before of identity politics and all along those lines. But I did get the impression that you're a fan of Condoleezza Rice, but also a fan possibly of the politics, not necessarily of the style of politics of Hakeem Jeffries. And if the House is controlled, Hakeem Jeffries would be potentially the head of the House and could possibly vault him into presidential politics, whether Trump is the president or not, and everything. So, what is your take on Hakeem Jeffries? Because this would move him into an even stronger position as a potential Democratic leader.
Look, I really like Hakeem Jeffries. I think that he's a fantastic Democrat, for them to have. I think he's got a long and illustrious career ahead of him, and I would actually like to see him on a presidential ticket. However, there could be a little omen in this, in that I don't think there's ever been, or maybe there's been one, speaker that's actually gone on to become the president. I don't think that that's ever really happened, or if it has, I think it's only happened once. Also, sorry to our viewer who asked the question, do all states need to vote? In the case of an electoral college tie, 269, yes, all the states have to vote. And someone fact check me on this, please. I believe that the outlying places like Puerto Rico and DC combine, or something along those lines. Because their rules are a bit different, but certainly for the 50 states, yes, they all have a say in that process.
I've got to double check on whether those territories get a vote. I don't think they do, but I'll double check.
The territories don't get a vote, but they do get votes in the primaries and things like that. So, but they don't get a vote in the House. I'm just not sure whether theirs get allocated to someone. I can't remember off the top of my head, but. With the exception of those, all 50 states do.
Coming back to gender, my question is for everybody on the panel. One of the things that I had read about recently, and it was very interesting, was that there is this notion of a cancellation vote. So there are spouses that know that their spouse is voting, particularly for Trump, but I'm sure it goes the other way as well, and they are intentionally voting against their spouse or the other half.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Well, what are we saying? That married couples that love each other, that share their resources, that are building a family together, are going to secretly go in. I think people will just tell them. And look, I've dated people before who have had different political views to me. You respect that. I would never demand that a woman I was with, must vote the way that I want her to vote. I respect that people, and I would just say to her, look, you vote the way you want to vote. If you want to tell me, tell me. If you don't. I don't care. So I think the idea that what they're trying to do, I think, is they're trying to appeal to women who are in Republican families and Trump families who are secretly going to go down and vote for Kamala Harris because of the good vibes. And I don't believe it. I just don't believe that that's going to be the case. That's why I said I don't believe that she's become a superstar 4 months after she was the most unpopular VP in modern American history.
What's your take on that, Joe? Because I've literally read and seen articles where women have said literally that they were doing that they were voting against their husband.
There are people that are doing that. I mean, honestly, even though it is seen as an outlier, and we talked a little bit about it earlier, the momentum honestly is on Kamala Harris's side and not on Donald Trump's side. And that you can base that on the outlying poll that came out of Iowa that had Kamala Harris winning a lot of women. 20 points up on women in comparison to Donald Trump, which is a huge thing. Sure, it can be an outlier, or it could be something that is telling us how women are looking at this election, which is huge. And yes, there are, as you say, Mark, there are people who will not tell their spouse or whomever that they're whom they're going to vote for once they go into that voting booth, because of the fact that because of their relationship. We don't know how everybody's relationship is, but there are those that do that. For example, you can even look at our history. It took we're still within 20 years of when a woman could finally get a credit card on her own. So there are there are historical precedents of women wanting to do things on their own, but
women could only get a credit card on their own in 2004.
Their spouses would not allow them to do so. So again, we can't say definitively that no one is doing that. That's crazy. We do know for a fact that some are. The percentage that are doing that, we're not sure. And there are men that are doing that versus their women that are voting for Trump and won't tell their wives the same, or their girlfriends the same, or their significant others the same. So it's just that portion. There is a voting bloc out there that's doing that, and we just have to respect that they're out there. We don't know the percentage, but they're out there.
And take a look.
Yeah.
So go, Rick, and then I'll come in later.
I don't have anything right now.
Look, I've known a lot of people in America, and often the relationships I've known where the woman is a Democrat and doesn't like Donald Trump, and the man likes Donald Trump, it's always the woman that just nags and is just horrible about it. And all of the Trump men that I've ever met have been quite respectful and said, look, you vote the way you want to vote, but so I suspect that if there's going to be spouses voting without telling their spouse, it's probably going to be men for Trump, not women for Harris, because Trump men, I think, can accept, not across the board, but I think that they can accept that. So I'm not sure that's what you're saying. Now, you bring up the poll out of Des Moines, Iowa, and I just find this so funny because after that poll came out, Donald Trump dropped precipitously in the betting markets. And I'll just use Polymarket for this example, but even internationally, the bookies and everybody immediately dropped the odds for him. He was at 67% on Polymarkets at one point. He dropped all the way down to 53%. And I looked at that poll. I looked at how it was conducted. It was full of all sorts of very clear biases and errors. And the markets have since reacted. He's had a surge over the weekend. That surge has continued into today. And he's now at 61, 62% when I looked shortly before the show. Now, those are numbers. Can I finish, please?
Yes.
Those are numbers that are similar to what he was when he was at his peak against her. They're getting up. They're not far off. They're sort of 5 or 10% off what he was after the Biden debate and the aftermath of the Biden debate. So I'm not sure why anybody would say the momentum is on his side. And it's very, very interesting what the media did in relation to these polls, because the Des Moines poll came out, and at exactly the same time as the Des Moines poll came out, another poll came out that also had a whole heap of errors and problems in the way they conducted the poll, and that was an Emerson poll from Iowa, and that poll showed that Trump was leading by, I think they said 11 points, which is a little bit too high, right? But what did the media focus on? The media focused on Iowa. That lasted for a couple of days, and the polls have swung back. So I don't think the momentum's on her side based on where the betting markets are, based on as well that if you go to independent channels that show, there's a channel on YouTube that just shows campaign ads. He doesn't make any kind of commentary on the campaign ads himself. When he does make commentary, it's actually more in support of Harris than the others, this particular one. And he did a poll, 3,000 people responded, 96% of those people said they were voting for Trump. Now, look, there's going to be response bias, but I'm just not. I don't think the momentum's on her side at all.
So just to mention about that Des Moines, Iowa poll, that same pollster, her methods and everything that she did was ranted and raved about by Donald Trump when he was shown to be up. But because he was shown to be down, they attacked the same methods, the same individual, and the same poll. So I'm not saying that poll is, hey, this is the greatest poll since sliced bread. Donald Trump claimed it was when he was leading. Donald Trump was the one that ranted and raved about it.
Okay, but I'm not Donald Trump. I'm telling you what I think. I'm not telling you what he thinks.
So that was Donald Trump who ranted and raved about it. So I'm not saying that, again, this is a well-respected and well-trusted pollster. So I'm just saying, and I agree it is an outlier, but what does that outlier mean? Is it really something, especially at the end of the campaign, the way Donald Trump closed and the way Kamala Harris closed? Does that show something within the electorate that we are discounting? That is where I'm trying to figure out. And that's where my analysis is when I'm talking about, I think there is a hidden vote, especially amongst women, that we are overlooking and discounting.
Really?
So, I mean, this Des Moines poll is one poll out of literally thousands of polls. And one thing I've learned, which I should have known anyway, during this election, is every poll is a recipe where you're taking your people, you get 2,000 people who say yes, and you try to get a representative sample, and then you have to weight the sample further. You have to bake the cake by saying, well, we got 51% women responding to this poll, but we think that 53% of women are going to be the proportion in the electorate. So we have to weight women a little higher, and we have to figure out, look at how many Republicans versus Democrats do we think will be voting. And then are these likely voters or these, and like everything is like, it's so much guessing. So yeah, you can't trust anyone poll.
Look, I have an issue. I'm not trying to pick on you, Rick, but I think it's an example of what I've heard from a lot of people. There was a poll in New York that showed that she was up by 8 points, which is a horrendous thing for her, really. She should be up by 20 points in New York. If on election night, although they don't close their polls until 9 o'clock, I believe, if on election night she wins New York by less than 5 points, that doesn't bode very well for her because the rest of the country is going to be pretty much on the right of her. Now, New York Siena polls came out. Well, one, they had to adjust their polls because they had oversampled Democrats. New York Siena poll came out. And people started saying, well, I don't really trust New York Times. They're too right-wing. The Atlas Intel poll was an outlier that showed a whole heap of support for Donald Trump. Well, we don't trust them. They're lunatics, right? Even though they were the most correct pollster in 2020 and 2022. The LA Times and Washington Post both not endorsing a candidate, which is almost the same as them endorsing Trump. It shows that there's been a seismic shift. Now, people say, well, that's because Trump threatened them. I say it's because they realize they're losing credibility with the audience. They're losing audience and viewership, and they need to do something about it. So I think the idea of ever saying that this poll was really good and this other poll is really bad, look, the polls are just a tool to help gauge support. As I said, I'm not going to repeat my analysis from before. I think it'll be a blowout because I think the polls are not showing us the real story. Jacoby may well be correct. It may well be correct that women are actually going to be over enthusiastic about voting for a woman and focusing on the abortion issue, or it could be the case that actually immigration, the economy, foreign relationships, and all the foreign policy, and all those sorts of things are going to be the primary thing that people are voting for, and they preference Trump.
All right.
We don't.
The two major newspapers who didn't endorse. Even though their editorial board wanted to endorse Kamala Harris, were the LA Times and the Washington Post. Both are owned by billionaires who just didn't, and one of them is owned by Jeff Bezos, the Amazon.
So, well, what's that got to do with anything?
So, I mean, the theory is of Bezos, at least, is that he didn't want to piss off Trump, that he does a lot of business he's got a huge business, and he didn't want his business effed by Trump.
Well, okay, but that's one theory. But that's one theory. But then you've got Republicans that have been saying for a long time now, why are all these very wealthy tech billionaires constantly throwing their support behind Democrats and going for more taxes? Why would they want to pay more taxes? I'm not buying this. I'm not buying that they're all so frightened of Donald Trump. Maybe they are. Maybe you're right. Maybe they are. But I don't think so. I think that there are some other issues at play. And it's worth noting that billionaire who's he's like a gaming. He made billions out of computer games or something. He actually gave a donation to Donald Trump. He actually was one of those donors. Gave a donation to Joe Biden. He was one of the donors that actually said, "Look, Joe Biden, you need to step aside," and all that sort of stuff. And he's recently come out and said, "I have to endorse Donald Trump because I can't see the country continue down this path." So you're seeing a lot of seismic shifts, and I think that that's been underreported by the media. And that's why I'm thinking it's more likely to be a blowout for Trump than it is the other way around.
I mean, you have, again, older women shifting to Kamala Harris. That's the most reliable voting bloc out there.
All right.
That's not what the numbers are showing.
I'm going to sleep through 2 more hours of this stupid day.
Well, I'm going to bed because it's 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning for me. And then when I wake up, I'll be heading into the studio and I'll be on Joel Jamal's show for Turning Point Australia, and we'll be doing a couple of joint things with Charlie Kirk in America, and I'll attempt to beam into the Pod TV election coverage as well and check in from Australia with all of my right-wing friends. To Toby, they're much further on the right than I am. I'll look like a progressive in front of these guys. So I'll make a quick appearance with you guys and with our Australian partner at Edge Radio.
All right. God bless us all here.
I think you'll need it. God bless.
Yeah, we're going to get on out of here just really quickly. Just I'll add this little note to let Shaquille know, as I've said it before on other shows, it can be interesting when there are Republicans and Democrats that live in the same household. I told him and I've told others that my mom's significant other many years ago before he passed away was a Republican, and he actually took her to the Republican National Convention, which he still is amazed at, and all along those lines.
Just for the sake of audience engagement, I just saw a comment coming in from Jack Donovan that says that the election laws state that only 50% of the states are required to vote in the event of a tie. So thank you for telling me that, Jack Donovan. I stand corrected. That sounds like a really odd thing to do. Why would you not want to vote? But okay, that's very, very interesting. So thank you for correcting myself and letting our audience know. Appreciate it.
And on that note, we're going to get on out of here. We'll be back on World Politics this evening, and that special that you were referring to will be at 9 o'clock this evening, and hopefully we'll have a result and not be waiting until Christmas Day, as my guest said, and all along those lines. But hopefully we'll have a result this evening or early in the morning. But right now, we're out of here.